Hello! Welcome back to the John Warburton Occurrence. This is episode 8. I'm feeling a little less nervous than I usually do about recording because I feel awful before I set the camera up, and I hope that confidence is starting to come through a little bit. And not just how I speak, but in the quality of the whole experience, whether it's audio or me flap my hands everywhere, trying to talk with my hands apparently. But before we get into today's episode, I took a little bit of a hiatus from doing the podcast because my mental health took a dip, and I just felt like I needed to take a pause, reflect on what was going on, deal with it, and then just come back with a good head on my shoulders. So today's episode might hit a little bit deep, but I hope it's in a good way and we can learn some lessons along the way. So today we're talking about triggers, not the buzzword version, not the blame game, because unfortunately you get so many phrases today that get thrown about and people don't really understand what they mean. The version of triggers I'm talking about today is the honest, inward facing ones. And I want to start with this. Your triggers are your responsibility, not your friends, not your partners, and not society's. It's for you to take on and work through it. So, firstly, what is a trigger? A trigger could be anything that sparks a strong emotional reaction inside you. Often feel automatic, overwhelming, or it can just be something that's so out of proportion to the situation you're in. It could be a word, a tone, facial expression, an environment you're in, or even just silence. Triggers pull something from within you, not because of the thing itself, but because of what that thing represents to you personally. And I don't think triggers are the problem. I think it's our awareness, unawareness of what to do with them. Words are hard, I'm sorry. Your trigger isn't the enemy. It's just the messenger from your body. Your body's trying to tell you something. It's pointing to something unresolved inside you. A wound, a fear, an unmet need, or a belief you haven't challenged yet. Or it could be something you didn't even know bothered you. When you react to a trigger, you're not reacting to reality. You're reacting to a story your nervous system remembers. Often one you never consciously chose to carry. That's why triggers can feel really overwhelming, because they hit your body in ways you don't always expect. So I've got a couple of general example of triggers. It's not necessarily the way they manifest with everyone, but I'm gonna go ahead and these are just ones I found. So someone interrupting you may trigger you, not because the interruptions are inherently damaging, but because it makes you feel unheard, dismissed, or disrespected. Maybe it's the same way you felt as a child or in a relationship with somebody. Another one, criticism might be a cause of a trigger, not because of the words, but because it taps into some sort of deep belief that you're not good enough and feeds into your self-doubt. And then my last example then is being ignored can make you spiral because it pokes at old feelings of abandonment or invisibility. There are endless ways this can show up, and I'm not going to try and name all the triggers or all the examples because I don't want anyone to feel left out because I haven't used their sort of story as an example. So I'm just going to move on to the next part. So what's the important distinction we need to be able to make so we're more aware? So a trigger isn't just being about being upset. It's something inside you that's being activated. It's when your body and emotions go into overdrive before your consciousness catches up. And this is why it can be so hard to even realise it's a trigger, because it can just catch you off guard massively. Essentially, when something triggers you, it's activating a sort of emotional time travel. You're in the present, but your reaction belongs in the past. It's not always about the present moment. They're about the memory that it brings up for you. And I'm just going to give another general example of when a trigger can manifest. Not always true, but it could be the case. So someone cuts you up in traffic, And if for some reason it makes you explode with anger, it's not about the car, but in the moment it feels like it is. The trigger is it's made you feel years of feeling ignored or disrespected. I know some people just get road rage generally, but I just like that 'cause it's really simple to talk about. A trigger is in a fire alarm going off, but sometimes there's no fire. Sometimes you're just reacting to smoke from an old burn and there's no new flame. So, why is it not the world's job to adapt? I think, unfortunately, as a society, we've created this sort of culture to expect the world to adapt to us. And in the most part, we have adapted the world for some really good and powerful reasons. But I think for our own self preservation and to like heal from our wounds, we need to teach ourselves to adapt to the world around us as well. We've got to take that deep breath and figure out where reaction is actually coming from inside us. Yep, that's right. More self reflection. I know I love this saying, but it's true in a lot of cases. We can't expect the world to adapt to us because of our past trauma. We need to heal and get back to the world as the best version of ourselves. I'm not here saying that we should dismiss other people's triggers and just tell them to get over it. What I am saying is we should approach each other with respect and compassion, but at the end of the day, our own triggers are our own responsibility. It's when the person who's figured out their triggers take responsibility for their triggers, they start their healing journey, and at the end of the healing journey, they become better version of themselves, and become the best version of themselves. And I'm gonna like bring it back to a personal level now, where I was triggered, and it was involved my passing my sister, and I remember there were many times where I wanted people to walk on eggshells around me. I remember if she passed away, I used to get so angry when people mentioned someone getting run over or joking about running someone over. And in those moments, I remember my rage would go from all the way down here to off the charts, and it felt like I was going to turn into the Hulk. Luckily, I never did because it would have been dangerous. And it took me years to figure out that it was a trigger inside me. Probably 6, 7 years. I know it's a long time, but that's how long it took me. Once I figured that out, eventually, I realised what I was doing was asking the world to tiptoe around my pain instead of facing it and healing from it. And when people would avoid the topic, it gave me more chances to just ignore it, not to work on it and heal it. It took a lot of inward looking, but I finally figured a way past it. The world won't shrink itself for your wounds, and it shouldn't have to. Your healing is on you. I don't mean it to be harsh, I want it to be empowering and push you into healing and being that best version of yourself. So, what's the best thing to do when we realise we're getting triggered by something? Personally, I'd say try to look at it from a new or different perspective. What is a trigger? It's your body holding on to something. So, we could look at it this way. Triggers are here to teach us how to heal. And I just think it's a really simple way of looking at it. But I think sometimes looking at things simple, it just helps your mind sort of work through it a little bit better. That works for me personally. It doesn't necessarily going to work for everyone. But let's go back to my personal journey. So what did I do when my sister's death was triggering me? I'd write down what made me angry. So just journaling my thoughts and feelings. And slowly but surely, that the root of that trigger starts to, flash in my face. And, I worked on that, and I realised that I weren't being fair to people around me by asking them to, like, not talk about it because again, it's ignoring the pain and not working on it. You know, journaling isn't the only thing you can do. There are loads of different things. There's therapy, meditation. Sometimes just talking can help, but you've got to do what feels right for you and makes you feel comfortable. But I would advise, whatever way you're going to do it, break down the trigger bit by bit, make it as simple as you can. So if I go back to my being cut up in traffic example and just ask questions. So why did you feel angry? I felt disrespected. Why did that make you feel disrespected? It reminded me of a previous relationship. I know it's not always and probably never will be that simple, but asking honest questions and answering really brutally will get you that much closer to the root. And this helps you recognize the story you've been repeating yourself. And maybe that's the time you can rewrite that story. When you feel that emotional spike, pause. Ask yourself, is it about now or is it about then? Most of the time, it's going to be about then. So I think the key thing to remember about this is that triggers aren't a weakness inside us. They're a powerful tool to uncover the wounds we're still holding on to, sometimes subconsciously. And, holding on to this wound or wounds, we're holding back our own healing and carrying extra mental load without even realizing it. Embrace that trigger and really, really try and listen to what it's trying to tell you. It'll hopefully help you on your road to healing, and maybe you'll start to feel happiness more often, more deeply, because you're no longer carrying that sort of mental and emotional load with you everywhere. So, next few weeks, if something sets you off, don't run away from it. Sit with it. Get curious. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me about myself? Be honest, be brutally honest, and you may uncover something you didn't even know was there. Can help ease your self doubt, boost your self worth, or just lighten that mental load and emotional load. But at the very least, it's got to be a step towards something better. So, the moment you take full responsibility for your triggers is the moment you begin to heal. And when you begin to heal, the world doesn't feel so sharp anymore. Just remember that. The healing journey is our own. We don't have to do it alone. So thank you for listening to episode 8 of the Joe Morgan Occurrence. If this hits home, share it with someone who needs it, please. We're all in this together. Keep showing up for yourself, especially yourself. See you later.